moment for the notification to go out there. And today's painting, and I'll probably repeat this a few times, today's painting is how to paint clouds with acrylic. But we're going to do more than that. We're going to paint clouds, we're going to paint the landscape, we're going to make it look like a fantasy landscape. There's going to be a lot involved in this. So there's a couple of things that you want to know about that. Yeah, it's shadow going across it. Okay, a couple of things you want to know. First of all, what we're doing here is we are going to dip in with some big brushes. We're going to use the following colors. We're going to use Payne's Gray, Phthalo Blue, Titanium White. There will be a little bit of yellow. There will be some sky blue in there. We're going to use a lot of different colors. First things first, though, we need to cover a lot of area with a lot of paint. So let's get to that part, shall we? Okay, we're just going to go ahead and use this brush right here. We're going to get it pretty wet. And we'll dip in here and just start painting. These makeup brushes just make things fantastic for being able to cover a lot of space in a very short amount of time. I'm not sure why my canvas is moving like that, but we'll try to keep it from doing so. And we just want to get a nice baseline right down the center now. We got that. We're going to dip into some of our other paint, our Payne's Gray and our Phthalo Blue. We're just going to bring the sides in for it. And again, these makeup brushes just kind of do all the work for you. We're going to start naturally getting a little bit of definition of some clouds going on. And as that happens, we're just going to work with it from there. We want it to be darker up at the top and lighter as we get down to the bottom. There will be a reason for that later when we end up putting in our mountains and other parts of the landscape down at the bottom. But this, what's nice is making sure that you end up priming your canvas. Once you prime your canvas, the rest of this stuff ends up being kind of easy. Okay, we're going to dip back into the Payne's Gray and the Phthalo Blue. We'll come over to this side. We're just pulling down as much as we can. We want to kind of mix it right there on the canvas for us. This side's significantly darker. That's okay because we're going to go in and lighten it up anyway. In fact, I'm going to just clean up this brush real fast. Get it pulled across the towel, and I'm going to dip into my Titanium White and my Sky Blue. And we're just going to start pulling that in. Now your clouds will just start forming like crazy. These makeup brushes do a lot of your work for you. All right. Hi guys. Thanks for tuning in. All right. So your makeup brushes will start to just naturally make clouds for you. Just kind of push your paint around real fast. Once you've got it pushed around like that, take out a brush that's not wet. And you want to come in and it's going to mix it for you on the canvas. As you mix it on the canvas, you're going to start to get an indication of clouds. Now, that indication of clouds is what you're going to build off of. You just want to let it happen, because once it happens like that, you can go in and start going in with your highlights and your lowlights and picking in all of your details. We're going to be doing a couple of things on this. We're going to make this a fantasy landscape painting. And right now, I'm really just mixing it to kind of get an idea of where my clouds are going to be. I'm going to dip back into my wet brush, the great big one again. And I'm going to constantly darken up these corners. I want the top of the corners to be really dark. And I want it to come down in a transition as we go along. Can you give me a shout out? Cool Kid 24. There you go, man. You got a shout out. All right. And as we're going along and I'm painting this, if any of you guys have any questions on how these end up working, I'm going to get a little sky blue in there. Just ask me as we're going along so that we can talk about how these paintings are done. And again, what we're doing right now, this is just the fast work. This is just the stuff to get the transition going across it and get a difference of what I want in it. Now, once we have kind of a baseline, this is where the fun stuff comes in. Okay, you're gonna see in just a second, I'm gonna take this same great big brush with the paint that's on it already, and I'm going to dip it into my titanium white, get it just a hair wet, and I'm gonna start making my clouds. And in just a second, you'll start to see how these work. Get a little bit more of that titanium white, maybe put some of the cloud up here. I have to decide which direction my light source is coming from. In this case, I think I'm going to make my light source dead center, which is one of the harder types of paintings to do. So if I make it dead center, you guys will see how that works in just 1 second here. Again, feather it out on the edges. If your corners start to get too light, you want to go back in with your Payne's Gray and your Phthalo Blue, and you want to darken those up. But really, you want to try and get a smooth transition for where things are at. And you can already start to see we've got a cloud bank here that's forming. We've got a little bit up here and some of it down here. I'm going to dip back into the titanium white with this great big one again. And I'm going to lighten up right down through here because, like I said, we're going to make our light source down here. In fact, I think I'll make the light source dead center here, which means I need a lot of titanium white right there. There we go. All right, it's coming through just fine. And you can start to see the clouds forming. All right, now, hey, while you guys are listening, it looks like we only have 4 people left. Tell me, are any of you guys artists? Are you working on things? What level are you at? What kind of stuff do you really want to know? I'm going to use that stuff in my next live videos. And if you haven't checked out some of my live videos, if you want to see the live video of the eagle painting, that's the one that I just did a couple of days ago. So if you haven't already, like and subscribe so that you are constantly being notified and you'll be able to know when I'm painting live. And I do just about 100 paintings a year. So since I do just about 100 paintings a year, that means you guys have the opportunity to see a lot. Now, right there, you can see that yellow. That is yellow ochre. I paint miniatures. Cool, miniatures are great. Also very difficult to paint. I'm gonna just kind of mix that yellow ochre right through there. That's gonna give us the indication of where our light source is at. We're gonna go ahead and clean that brush off, dip back over to this one, and I wanna darken up my corners real quick. So I'm gonna go back into the Payne's Gray and the Phthalo Blue. And I want to get some definition for a leading edge of these clouds. You can start to see how bringing in that shadow, bringing in those lowlights, that makes a big difference for how your clouds are going to look here. That's really what gives you the definition. Is your midtones don't matter that much. It's the constant battle between your shadows and your highlights. And if you don't have that constant battle between your shadows and your highlights, then it doesn't work. Now, speaking of miniatures, Lone Wolf's Den, if you're still on here, give me a quick shout again. I wanted to tell you something that I've done for miniatures that help build a lot of shadow real fast and give you an opportunity to build off of it. Because I've painted a few miniatures in my life. I've never done any videos of them because it's not my primary business. All right. Yeah, you're still here. So one of the things I do is I'll take a great big brush, not quite this big. It's going to be something more along the lines of a really soft brush like this, one that I've used for a while. And then I will dip it in some very dark paint, and I will dry brush all across it and that will end up giving me a primer across the thing, and then I've got all of my shadows done. Then all you need to do is pick out your midtones and your highlights. I don't know if it's a very common method. I don't know if that's what you use. If it is, go ahead and let me know. All right, we have got just a little bit more, I think, just a little bit more up here. I want to keep this dark and move that in. It's okay if it looks a little ragged. I want to use that. And as I said, you guys can start to see how the clouds form right before you, just using two giant brushes, and that's it. You don't have to go in with your detail very much if you don't want to. I'm going to be doing some detail in these clouds in just a minute, but I want to get all of this first. You do that trick. Yeah, it's a great trick then. Apparently a lot of people do it. It's one of my favorite ways of doing it, but you know, I've been an artist for such a long time. I'm always trying to find the fastest ways to do things. I don't want to spend a lot of time if I don't have to. Okay, we're going to dip back into our titanium white, and I want to lighten this area up. That's where my light source is going to be anyway. And I'm going to drag it out in kind of circular motions. It's going to give me some more areas of these clouds that just start to form. I really like to let the brush do the work for me. And I'm going clockwise, counterclockwise. These circular motions will naturally pull my highlight out to the edge. Likewise, if I had loaded this up with any dark paint, I'd be pulling it in, and it naturally mixes it for you. Let's get a little bit more right there. I think we'll kind of have a high highlight in this one. Let's put it through this area right there, just like that. And then maybe a little bit more. Let's bring some up here. Not too much, but just enough. Just as though the light source is shining up onto a cloud bank at the top. And like I said, I'll go ahead and get some new details pulled in a minute. What we're working on primarily right now is just getting the shape of some clouds in and just seeing where the paint goes. You don't have to be anal retentive about the way that your clouds get formed. You don't have to be anal retentive about just anything, because if you kind of relax and you let it happen, you get a more interesting painting that way anyhow. All right, we're going to dip into our yellow ochre. Ooh, that was a little bit much. Just get a little bit of on it. Just kind of brush it through here. I don't want to push too hard. If I push hard, I'm going to pick the paint up instead of laying it down. So knowing that is very important. Maybe get a little bit of that up here. What makes white brighter? Well, that would be yellow. And maybe get just a touch of burnt sienna in here as well. Because if I get some burnt sienna up in the clouds, it kind of gives me an interesting tone. I'm going super light with this because I don't want to lay down a lot of paint with it. And I'm just kind of move off of this center point. See that bright white right there? That's where I'm going to make my light source hit. So that's going to be the center of my light source. And I'm going to show you guys some tricks with some smaller makeup brushes. So these are smaller makeup brushes. These right here are going to make a difference. If by now, by the way, if you have not already liked and subscribed to my channel, please do so. It lets me know you guys are out there, lets me know that I'm painting for you guys, and it gives me the opportunity to give you guys that have subscribed some really interesting discounts if you ever want limited edition prints of my work, or if you want to buy an original painting. Okay, we're going to go ahead and make this the brightest part of the canvas. Just going to move it out and soften it up. If it ever feels like I've got too much of a hard line on there, I can come in with another brush, another one of the makeup brushes. And I move it. Oh, that one's really not clean. I didn't clean that one. And that one's not clean. How many of these brushes haven't I cleaned? I mean, I paint about a painting a day. Except for this year. I've only got 77 paintings done this year. This will be painting number 78. I try to go for 100 paintings a year. If I can get 100 paintings a year done, then I'm generally happy. And so I guess that's only a painting, almost every 3 days. There we go. Okay, we're starting to get our area that I like. I want more of this titanium white in those areas. And I'm going to lay it on really kind of heavy and thick in there, and then just kind of move it out from the center. And these kinds of paintings, I've been doing so many of them for such a long time that I don't really have to do any kind of planning on them. They just kind of work out for me. But that's because I've focused on learning how to do cloud paintings for such a long time. You can see we're starting to pick out some details now. That's good. Get a little bit of it going on here. If I don't like the way that feels, I can always dip back into another brush, a great big one. In this case, it's going to be this brush. And I can soften that up quite a bit. I don't want too many hard edges in the background because, well, they're a long ways back. I do want to pull in some more of that yellow ochre though. That yellow ochre is really going to give me the brightest areas. I'm going to mix it with a lot of my titanium white. What do you use to clean your brushes? Well, this is acrylic paint, so all I use is water. And people are like, well, I don't like using acrylic paint. It dries too fast. You just have to learn to paint faster. And that's kind of one of the keys to acrylic, is just learning to paint faster. Okay, let's soften that up. Use the great big brush. That's why I use these giant brushes and the makeup brushes. The makeup brushes give you the opportunity to get really smooth transitions. Maybe get a little bit more titanium white right here. Kind of move it out from the center there. Then I'm just going to use this brush to smooth the edge of it. And we're really getting some nice movement and transition. Let's hard line that up there and there. And then soften it. So yeah, you can use acrylic paint and you can make it look really soft. You just have to learn how to do it. And that's why I do these videos, is to try and help you guys learn how to do it. We can probably get a little bit more refracted light and reflected light up there along that top edge. I'm going to clean that brush, get most of that yellow off of it. And I'm going to go back in with some titanium white right there, right up here. And if it seems like it's just too bright, I'm going to go in with my blue and mix with my blue right on it. In fact, let's go ahead and do that. I'm just going to dip into some sky blue. I'll go ahead and clean or brush it right off to the side. That gives me a little bit of a dry brush technique. I'm just going to mix that right through. And you can mix it right on your canvas if you're fast enough. And if you don't like the way it looks, well, the great thing about paint is you can constantly cover it up. I'm going to grab this brush right here, which is another makeup brush. Gives me a chisel edge so that I can keep that hard edge, and it does this really wonderful spread of the paint through here. Maybe there's some wind that pulls that off that way. Okay. And if it gets a little tacky, you want to get a little more water on it. Okay, there we go. All right, you guys are starting to see clouds form really fast now. And it's using some of the paint that's already on the canvas to mix together. When I went in and I put that itty bitty bit of burnt sienna in there, that really helped a lot. Maybe we'll pull this out here. Here we're gonna push really hard and get the paint to pull from what's in the back forward, kind of get us some layering effect. And maybe a stray bit right there. That semi-transparent cloud is going to give you this look of being way in the background. That's good. You want to have layers to your clouds. Your clouds are like giant balls that have got itty-bitty balls on them. So it's a sphere, and that sphere is really oblong and weird shaped. That's what's going to give you an opportunity to make these things work and pull them forward. Okay, and if it starts to look like I'm getting too much on the end, I'm going to go ahead and grab one of my other brushes and then darken up the corners a little bit. So you'll get to see how some of this Payne's Gray, one of my favorite mixing medium paints, really does the job. We're going to pull out one more different type of makeup brush, this one right here. And we're going to go ahead and get into our Payne's Gray and our Phthalo Blue. And I'm going to bring it down lightly in here. And this one is going to pull a lot more in different directions than those other brushes. Learning how your brushes work and how they move, that's half of the fun of learning how to paint. I like the dark area there. Pretty good. Looks nice the way that we've got it. Now the next question would be, how do we end up turning it into, a fantasy painting? There's a couple of ways to do that. My favorite way to do it is to add a little bit of pink. So in this case, let me move over here. Let's see, what have I got? Oh, you know what? Let's actually add a little bit of orange. Orange will be good. So we're just going to take our orange paint. In this case, it's Master's Touch. Doesn't cost that much. You want to kind of pick it up from wherever you can. A giant tube like this will last me, probably about 2 months with the amount of paint that I put onto a canvas. Okay, and then I'm going to dip into a different brush this time. I'm going to go with a flat brush. This flat brush has only one purpose, and that's to get the paint on there so that I can use the makeup brushes to mix them around. All right, let's see here. Ooh, that one's still hard. See, this is what happens if you don't clean your brushes. They get hard like that. That's all right. You can end up cleaning them at a later time just by going in and you want to take a little bit of soap and, oh, thank you. Sugar, amazing artist. I appreciate that. And you got a shout out. Okay, now, I'm taking some of that orange, and I'm going to take a little bit of the burnt sienna, dip it into my titanium white, and I want to just give a little bit of paint here. And like I said, it's just to get it out there. I'm going to take this makeup brush, make sure it's really wet, and I'm going to move it around a little bit first. And then I'm going to end up getting, I'll put a little bit up there too. It looks nice if let's grab a little. You can literally grab paint right off your canvas and just kind of pop it up into some of these other areas. Let's do that a little bit more up through there. Grab a big brush. And boom, it mixes itself right in, gives you a couple of extra layers. And one more color to bring it in and make it look a little happier. Okay, let's start adding what's going to make this thing look like a fantasy painting. I'm going to get a lot of my burnt sienna, a lot of my titanium white. I'm going to put it on this brush right here, and I'm going to start putting in some planets. Don't worry if it's perfectly round as soon as you're putting it on the first time, because what you're going to do is just kind of work it until you get it into a round planet. You do that by just rolling the brush around. These flat brushes are the way to do it. You want to have a lot of paint on there. Now you guys are at a bit of an angle. You're not going to see that it's perfectly round because it's going to be in perspective according to your angle. We've got one planet in there, but it doesn't look like a planet yet. Why? Because, well, it's a little bit too vibrant all around. So come in. In this case, I'm just using a really beat up brush that I've got. And I'm just going to pick this out on this side. Pull in some planet details, just using a mixing right on the canvas. And then I need to highlight the front edge. I use a much better brush right here. I get straight into my titanium white, and my titanium white only. You can see it's all globby. I'm gonna go to the top of this. I'm gonna just kind of pull like that. And then I'm gonna get my leading edge. If it's not enough paint, dip back into it, get a little bit more paint. Well, there we go. We've got planet number 1's in. We can do some more work on it later as it starts to dry. You can even work on it wet. I mean, I'll just get a little bit more of the Payne's Gray with my nice brush here. And while that Payne's Gray is a little wet, I'll get the back edge brought out. And there you go. You've got a planet forming. Nice and easy. You can even go in and make it a little more vibrant later. But now, let's take that same flat brush. Let's put in another planet in a different spot. This one's going to be blue. Actually, no. Let's use this one. We're going to make a big planet. So I want to get some titanium white. I want to get a good amount on the brush. And I want to get some sky blue. Maybe put just a touch of the burnt sienna in it, and then get some more titanium white. I don't want the paint so wet. If the paint's too wet, it's going to drip as you do it. So sometimes what you do is you come to the top, tap it, and all of that will just kind of splash off of it. Let's see. Let's put it up here, and then we'll cover it up with a little bit of clouds. You can see I've got some drag around the outside. I'm not worried about that because I'm going to clean it up with a detail brush later. I just want to roll it in a circle and kind of get my spherical shape. I put it on here pretty wet. We got a nice sphere up there. We're going to let that one sit for a minute because that one's got to dry. It's too wet. But this one's probably dried up enough now to come in and pick out a few more details on the front end of it. I'm going to get my titanium white, a little bit of my orange, and I'm going to come in on the front of my brush. Now I'm really globby on the paint right now. That's okay. I'm just going to let it sit in there. That's just not enough. I need it more vibrantly white. So I'm going to clean the brush and just get straight white. A big glob of white. And I want my leading edge to point down toward my light source. It's space, it doesn't really matter, but in this case, we're going to make it look that way. Okay, that one's looking a little bit better. Let's pick out some stars now, shall we? I want to take my brush, same fine brush. I want to get my white really liquid. And then I'm just going to start picking out some stars. And the way I do this is I just tap. My fingers will just tap the canvas. And I just kind of move around in a pattern here, kind of random, as much random as I can get. I don't worry if they end up getting too... Oh, I picked up some of the paint from this. You know what? Let's clean this up just a little bit. In fact, let's pull in our darker color on it as well. Maybe it's more or less a moon. We don't really know. We're going to worry about it a little later. It's still very wet. We just want it to sit out there though. Okay, back to our stars. This one drug a little bit much, so we're just going to make a cluster of stars near that. Pull some down in here. And then maybe, just maybe, we need one great big star, something that's super vibrant. Pull straight down. When you're doing this, you want to start at the top and you're going to pivot to the bottom and you want it to go in a straight line. You're going to kind of use what's on the canvas itself. You can see the grains of the canvas. Let the grains of the canvas guide you for where you're supposed to be at. If you start to feel like you're dragging this way, you're too much and you need to reposition your hand. Because if you're too far on the top there. We got a nice line, and then let's just pull another line right across here. It's just like when you were a kid and you're making stars, but we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to go into it later, and I'm going to clean it up a little bit. I can use some of the other paint to clean it up. It's really liquid, so I'm just going to leave it. But that gives me an opportunity now. Let's say I want to pick out more detail on the leading edge of my clouds. So let's just do that. All we're doing is making little squiggly lines across the front of the clouds, maybe pulling some of it up into here, because clouds have got interesting shape. It's like they're spheres with a whole bunch of little spheres all over in them. Pull that down just a little bit up here and there, and this is more important here. And you're like, well, gosh, that looks like it's kind of ruining all of your softness. Yep, that's what the makeup brush is for. Go along the back edge of it, leave the leading edge where it is, leave it kind of ragged, maybe soften it a bit as you need to. And you've magically got more details on your clouds. Really not that hard to do. Okay, hey, there it is. Now, some people will always ask me, hey, why don't you do like Bob Ross and put your face in there? Well, because you hear this amazing voice, it's because I've got the perfect face for radio as well. You know, why ruin my paintings by putting my face in there? Now, my girlfriend might argue with that. She thinks I'm pretty handsome, but that's because she's a saint. Okay, now, remember, this is our light source here, so wherever it's shining, however it's getting to, maybe there's just a little peak of some right up here. That's too much. I want to kind of bring that out. The more I pull on it, the more the paint will diffuse for me. Bring a little along this edge, because maybe we're getting something from other parts of space. And now back to this. But Sean, those are just really quick squiggly lines. Yep, your makeup brush does all the work for you. Starting to look pretty good. All right, I'm happy with where we're at. Let's get a little bit of color in that. I pulled in some of my burnt sienna, and I'm just going to bring it all the way down like this. I'm going to make sure that my makeup brush is wet. Then I'm going to pull out behind it like this. And if you start to see that it's just too much of the same pattern, then go one way, then the other, and that will randomize your pattern on your clouds a little bit more for you. If you don't like the fact that it's a hard line in some areas, soften that out so that you don't have a hard line. Then you'll have this different types of transition. That's a good thing to have. And our clouds are about done. I want to put just a little bit out here because we just got the hint of a cloud out here that's being lit up by our light source. And I'm going to pull that out until it's really, really, really thin. I don't want it to be vibrantly bright, except for right there. And if I don't feel like I've got enough stars, I can go in and I can use that same color that I've got, and then I've got little itty bitty stars that are of a different color out there. Just so it's a different random. All right, now we've got most of this done. Let's work on our planet up there in the corner, because it's just not quite right for me, is it? This was the one that was way wet. Let's pull our leading edge. And then we just want to pull it into our dark to give us some kind of a transition. Leave some of this mid-tone. That mid-tone is going to do some work for you as well. The planet looks pretty good now. So we've got two planets. We've got a star up here. The star up there is still a little bit too thick in some areas and thin in others. We want to thin it out toward the end of that flare. Whoa, that didn't work. We're going to have to make that one really long. That's the thing about your painting, is if you mess up, ultimately the only people that know you messed up is if you're doing one live and you tell them. Otherwise, they're going to think you meant to do that. So you guys get to be the only ones that know that I kind of messed up there. I think I've had too much coffee today. I can go in and I can, once it's dry, pull a little bit of Payne's Gray over it, and I can make it fade into the background some. Now, I think I'm pretty happy with where I've got my clouds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on the landscape now. For this, I will actually do something I don't do very often. I'm going to pull out some permanent black. I'm going to get my permanent black put on my easel. And not my easel, my palette. Okay, again, just cheap permanent black. You don't have to spend a lot of money in order to get some of these working well. I'm going to take this big brush right here, pull it into the permanent black, pull some of my Payne's Gray in it. Then I'm going to come down here where I've got this line from my tape, and I'm just going to make some mountains. Don't be too contrived with your mountains. Kind of let your brush flow where it's going to flow. Pull them down. Cover up that area of your clouds right there. Get that mixed in really well. And then maybe give yourself an indication of a mountain line back here that we're going to come in and cover up with some light blue. So leave it with your hard edge on the top. And then come in with your sky blue and your phthalo blue, a little bit of titanium white. And that's in the background, so it's going to fade itself out a bit. Even that's a little too bright, but you can see what we can do with it here in a minute. I can even pick up some details on the front of my mountains here, because again, my light source is here, so it's going to go this way. Choosing a center light source is generally not a good idea for a new artist, but if you've got the experience, you can go ahead and choose that center line and it's okay. And again, if you have not already, like and subscribe so that I know you guys are out there. Let's get our titanium white. You guys will watch this mix right on the canvas. It's pretty wet. I'm not super happy with how wet it is, so I'm going to mix with my paintbrush that is a makeup brush. My makeup brush is going to do a lot of the picking up any of that extra liquid, and it's going to mix really well right on the canvas. I don't worry if I mess up my edge of my mountains there, because I'm just going to go in and change it a little bit anyway. Let's work on this background here, do a little mixing. You can see I've got some nice shadow that's starting to form over there. I'll pull a little bit of that black from down there up. Maybe even get some of that. There we go. All right, we're starting to get a mountain here that I like. I'm going to use the same makeup brush pick up any of that extra liquid. Just roll across there. Let's put some details on the mountains now, shall we? Okay, let's pull to our detail brushes. Detail brushes. This one I like to use for mountains because this one's an old brush. It is already separated. It's really kind of a mess. So if it's a mess, it's going to be great for this. I'm going to dip into some burnt umber, mix it with my sky blue and titanium white, a little bit of burnt sienna, more burnt umber, and a tiny bit of that Payne's Gray. Then we're going to come in and start to detail some mountains here. I want some of that blue to shine through, so I don't want to cover all of it. I just want to make it a little bit more detailed and give it depth of color. By giving it that depth of color, I'm starting to get a little bit more of a nice view. I've still got this on here, so I may as well just pull this onto here as well. And over here. I'm not too worried about going over it too hard because I'm going to be darkening these two up quite a bit. Now this back edge here is a little too bright. And if it's a little too bright, I'm just going to go back to my Payne's Gray. Payne's Gray, as I said, one of my favorite mixing mediums. It's going to give me this nice shadow in there behind that part of the mountain. Those areas, it still has a bit of that burnt sienna and burnt umber on it. So it makes the mountain just right for me. There we go. Okay. That's really all I need for that back part of the mountain, unless I want to add more highlight, in which this case I'm going to. So we're going to mix up a little bit more highlight. Just pop it in a couple of spots. There. Okay, the mountain, maybe there. Just a little, not a lot, but just a little right there. That mountain's done. So, let's move forward to our other mountains. This valley area, I want it to be nice and dark. I'm just going to pull up. I'm just using the same really tortured fine detail brush, and I'm just using my Payne's Gray. Doesn't have to be a lot of detail on these because I don't want that to be where my contrast sits, really. And then the only time you're going to use hard lines, I'm going to use a hard line across here, so I'm going to go straight to my permanent black. I'm just going to pull across the top of my tape line. Yeah, this one's going to need some highlights right there, but not as bright and vibrant as the other spot. So there. Just pull it in wet on wet. Again, it's acrylic paint. Go wet on wet as fast as you can, because otherwise it will dry on you. And again, if you're not happy with it, hey, makeup brushes to the rescue. Okay. Cleaning up a little bit. Now we're ready to pull. No, I want some highlight. I want a really vibrant highlight right here. Yeah, that's too much. Right there and there. I think that actually looks a lot better. And then same thing here. Yeah, that's better. And it mixes right on the canvas for me. Okay, now I'm ready to pull. Tape comes off. Got a nice hard line right there. This next part is all kinds of fun. All you need to do for all of this down here is get yourself a great big brush. Let's see. This one, I didn't clean this one either. Let's see if I can soften that up real fast. If I can, we'll use that one down there. Otherwise, we'll use one of the others. Hang tight 1 second. This is the boring part where you guys get to watch paint dry. Why? Because I'm cleaning brushes and I didn't do it before I started it. It's still kind of rough. Let's see if I can soften it up. Now, when you have these and they get rough, you can pull them across a board. You can pull them across a towel. You can just try to get them to soften up a little bit for your purpose. This one's not quite there. You know what? We're going to skip that. And we're going to go back to a makeup brush. Let me see. Which one do I want to use? We'll use that one. Okay. I'm going to dip into some orange, burnt sienna, and some burnt umber. I'm going to make a nice rich color. Get a little bit of titanium white in it as well. And then I'm just going to pull it across here. That tape needs to be out of the way. It's my studio. I can toss things all over the place if I want to. Just get yourself to a point where you're mixing it up. Come up to here. If you're careful, you can get yourself a nice dark color, and you can give yourself the line right along the bottom of the mountains. This is a little bit dry, but you'll notice that as soon as I get some wet on it, it'll mix. Or I'm going to show you something where one of these other brushes we've already used becomes your hero. This guy right here. Get it a little bit wet. Pull it one way. Pull it the other. And boom, you've already got it. Now, let's get back to this. I want some of these dark streaks to come through just a little bit here and there. And then I'm going to pull down until I'm a little bit lighter along the bottom. Again, that's burnt sienna, orange, and a little bit of burnt umber. And let your makeup brushes do your mixing for you. If I don't like the way it's mixed, I just kind of pull some of it up. And your transition naturally happens. That's why you want some of these darker streaks in there. In fact, I think I want a little bit more of a dark streak. I'm just going to go straight with my burnt sienna, and I'm just going to pull across. Oh, and it's got some of that. That's nice. That'll help out a lot. Now, if that's all I was going to do with the foreground, that would be boring. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let that dry for just a minute. I'm going to come back up and work on some of these, and then you're going to see what I do to the foreground. Let's go ahead. Maybe we want to, let's put a little bit of this burnt sienna in up here. Gives us an interesting feel to that planet, and we'll pull some over here as well. Normally, I would have a hairdryer with me to dry all of this as fast as possible. You know what? I want to take and kind of mix up a bit of a green. Now, I've got some blue, and I've got some yellow ochre. So I'm going to get a real earthy green that's going to pull in on this planet. And I want to do the same thing over here. And that white that's on there is still a little bit wet, so it's going to mix right on the canvas for me. I like being able to mix on the canvas just about any time because it gives you a less contrived and a more interesting painting. And on the back side of that planet, I want it to show up like crazy, so I'm going to go straight into permanent black. And I'm going to pull along the back edge. I'm going to pull it in just a little bit, not too much. The details pick out nicely. That planet is really nice. Just comes in very nicely. We're going to do the same thing here, just a little bit though. Okay, we've got a couple of really nice planets. We were going to pull some cloud over top of this, but I like the idea that it's sitting on top of the cloud. And it's my painting. I can do anything that I want, but that does give it a little bit more of a fantasy feel. I'm going to use some of this to thin out the sides of my star here because the flare was a little too vibrant, a little too fat. I'm going to thin it out. It's going to make the ends of it disappear a little bit. That's good. And I'll just use this brush to try. I was going to use a makeup brush to kind of make it look like it's further in the background, but this one will work just as well. Actually, no, I do want to go to my makeup brush. Changing things on the fly is okay. There. Little faded, not so bright. Looks better. Got our planets in. How tacky are we down here? A little bit tacky still, so let's work on something else. Why don't we make our highlight more vibrant? We'll just move through here. This is all dry now. So since it's dry, I can put the paint on top and it's not going to pick up any of the paint underneath it. And I want it to be really vibrant in there. That's where everything on the highlight's coming from. That's where every bit of my light source for everything coming down this way is at. Maybe pull a little bit more along this leading edge, make a bit more of this cloud. And the only thing we're doing is we're just wasting time so we can get this to dry. Pull some down here. We're going to go across the top of this mountain here and pull it up this way. That gives us some nice contrast against that mountain. Okay. Truly amazing work. Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's give that shout out to 3D Mage. All right. As I say all the time during my paintings, if you have not already liked and subscribed, that's the best way to support me. Let me know you're out there. If you really want to buy a painting, paintings like this, they will be available for sale. Normally, if I go to a art convention or a geeky convention like Comic-Con or something, these paintings will end up selling for right around $500 to $600, $700 in the auction. But if people want to pick it up while they're on YouTube, a limited edition print is only $30. That's 8 by 10 inches. The actual painting itself, if you want to pick this up, would be for sale to you guys at only $250 plus shipping. Now, if you're in the continental U.S., which means the lower 48 states. Sorry, Alaska, Hawaii, you guys are on your own. It just costs way too much to ship things to you. You can end up getting this painting for $250 plus $30 in shipping. And if I just happen to like you because you are a subscriber and you've been on here, then you just end up paying me the $250 and I'll cover the shipping. But I have to know that you're a subscriber, because otherwise, why would I be nice to people that aren't going to subscribe? I mean, come on. This is the reason I paint for you guys, is so that you know you're out there, and I'm going to reward my subscribers. I know you're out there. Let's get a little bit more right here. I really want that to be a big... So now I'm giving a direction for where the light's moving. Most of the light's moving that way. You know what? I'm not happy with this up here. While we're waiting for all of this to dry, it's still a little bit tacky. Let's really vibrant this up. I need to move to another makeup brush. This one again. There. I like the way that cloud looks. That cloud looks great. All right, guess what? We're ready. Almost. We're almost ready to move down here. Because now you have to see how the landscape at the bottom is going to turn out. Because yeah, clouds are cool and everything, but what about the bottom? Well, let's get that done right now. This is where permanent black is going to come in. Just going to use this chisel brush right here. I'm going to dip into permanent black. And we're going to come from back here and just do this. Pull that up. We're just creating a bank. We're going to put a stream in there. And you're like, well, it doesn't look like a stream. That's because water reflects the sky. But our sky is mostly blue, right? Well, let's mix in a little bit of blue, a little bit of our, let's see, that is our yellow ochre and our white. And we work real quick on this stuff. You know what? Maybe we had, maybe it's a really low center here. We're going to bring some of it up here. You guys will see how I work that in just a second. Let's just move on this. We use this brush very carefully. And we will layer this stuff as we're coming through because we want it to get a good layered feel. Now, it doesn't really reflect the sky yet because the sky's mostly blue, right? Let's bring some blue in, shall we? Pull that out that way. Okay. You know what? I really want that to be a hard line here. And this one. And then more white. Just like that. And then more blue. Especially down here in the corner. And I'm just going to move that on up. This area looks a little muddy, so what are we going to do? Let's make it a little more vibrant. Pour some white right in there. Just pull it right in. All right, detail brush. Now you see all those little extra areas that we put right around here? Well, that's where our black comes in, guys. And maybe a little more. Let's make it a little thinner. And this is kind of a flat plane, so I do want most of my lines to be this way and only just barely dip into where I've got my river right here in the center. I'm going to pull up some weeds here. I'll add shadow in a minute, but I'm not worried about the shadow. Right now, I'm just worried about getting the indication of our stream in. And I want this to be darker back here. Ooh, that is a big glob of paint. Pull it off up there. There we go. This feels good. I like that hard line. There's all those rules. Don't put hard lines in your paintings. Once you learn how to break the rules, just break them. Besides which, this is just to show you guys kind of a speed painting on it, give you guys an idea of how some of these work. And I've still got 3 people that are religiously watching it. Hey, thanks guys, appreciate you sticking around for the bulk of the painting. Let me know in the comments if you guys have been here for the entirety of the painting. Also, let me know what we're going to call this planet, because it's clearly not Earth, right? Okay, maybe a little bit of Payne's Gray. This is our leading edge. And some of that looks really rough. Well, guess what? Makeup brushes to the rescue, right? Soften things up, pull it where I need it to be, thin it out in the background. And I want that to look like kind of a weed front edge. One of the tricks I always like to use is all of my corners, I like them to be darker than I have the center areas. So I'm going to take some Payne's Gray over here and just bring that in for a transition. And then I'll do the same thing down here while this is still a little bit wet. I'm going to get that brush really, really wet, clean it off a little bit, and I'm going to smooth out all of my water here. Okay, we're starting to get a good idea of what the painting looks like in the foreground. Hey, you came in when I was working on the clouds. Well, hey, cool. So you've been able to see most of this painting go from the start all the way through. We're going to get back in. Oh, look, that is a huge glob of paint. Yeah, this happens to me all the time. Let's just get a little bit of that out. And I just want some indications pulled through here. And that's just titanium white there, guys. Okay, time to put some hard edges and shadow in, shall we? Ooh, no, wait, I got an idea first. I've got an idea. Payne's Gray and black, and I'm just gonna pull down. I want that to be a little bit more wet. Switch to the other side of my brush. I want to get that down. That's going to be our shadow, and you'll see how we just get our shadow done real easy with just a couple of strokes. Fuzz it a little bit, bring in a little bit extra line. And now, we'll just move on to this brush. I'm going to get it wet. I'm going to go straight into my white. I'm going to put a little bit of my burnt sienna on it, maybe some burnt umber, more titanium white. I want to get a lot on there, and I want to load it up on my edge. And there we go, shoreline. I could let the paint dry a bit and then do it a bit better, but I like sometimes when the canvas just kind of does it, and it's kind of a happy accident. I don't like it to be too contrived when I'm working on anything. I want to put more blue in here, so I'm going to dip straight into my sky blue and mix it right in there and get rid of some of that hard line there. And mix it up through here. Then I want my superfine detail brush, and we're gonna get some weeds going on. I'm just taking and pulling it kind of randomly up and across. Not too worried about any of the real detail on it, like I said. Maybe the same thing back here. Because I can always take this brush again and just make it do the rest of the work. And there it is, nice easy painting. Something that anybody can try on their own. Let's get some more weeds over here. Ooh, we need more black. And then nice hard line along there. And now let's pick out some highlights in our landscape, shall we? We're just going to go with burnt sienna, orange, and titanium white. Get it a lot lighter than the background. And if that seems too bright to you, that's okay, because we can always use the makeup brushes to fuzz it out. And if it still ends up being too bright, I can just take some burnt sienna afterwards and pull it over top, which is what I'm going to do there because I don't like it. It ended up too bright. There, burnt sienna, right over top of it. Let's pick out a little bit more detail here. Ooh, that is way too wet. Yep. And here. Only one step left, guys. That's to put the brightest lines on the water that I possibly can. And that's almost pure titanium white at this point. And if they are too hard line, again, makeup brushes. You know what? I want a lot more. I'm just going to put the makeup brush in right there, and I'm just going to pull up a little bit right here, and then over. Some right there. And I think I want a little bit more of the sky blue in there as well with my titanium white. Maybe more blue there because this is a darker area. All right. Hey, let's sign it, shall we? We're done. Doesn't have to be hard to make these paintings, guys. All you have to do is know some of the tricks. Most of our background there was done just with one color. We just kind of brought the big old makeup brushes across. That did most of the work for us. We're going to sign right over here. We could add more detail or do more detail later. Again, if you have not already liked and subscribed, please do. If you would like a limited edition print, all you have to do is take a look at the description in any of my paintings, and you'll see that there's an email in there. But if you want to write it down right now, the email, so that you can buy a limited edition print for only $30, The email is SEAN, so Sean, Nathan, Ricks at gmail.com. That's SEANNATHANRICKS at gmail.com. And I would be happy to talk to you about any paintings. You can take a look at the myriad of other videos I've got, and you can see that I have 56 paintings in my studio right now. Some of them are sold, but I can always talk to you about them. And you can get a limited edition print of any of them. I only do 25 of each, and I number them before they go out the door. Okay. And I always put a number on here, the year that it was painted in. And there it is. Thanks for tuning in. This will end up going in the archive tomorrow so that people can watch it. So if you have any friends or family members that you would like to take a look at it, you can go ahead and have them take a look at it at that time. I really appreciate the people who came in for most of the painting and stuck with it. And I, of course, appreciate anyone who likes and subscribes and wants a print or an original. If you want a canvas print, which is 16 by 20, so the same size as this, a canvas print is $100 plus $20 shipping and handling. So, get back to me when you guys can. Thank you very much. Thanks to 3D Mage. Thanks to Lone Wolf's Den. And there's one other person on here that's watching. I don't know if that's Sugar or who it is. Do you want to make a comment real quick? Let me know who the other third person who stuck with most of the painting was. I want to give you guys a shout out. And we haven't got it yet. Well, gosh, guys, hey, this entire painting took 72 minutes, 17 seconds. If I were not doing an actual voice and showing you how to paint it, this painting would have taken about 45 minutes. Now, I say 45 minutes, but that's 45 minutes plus the 49 years it took me to get to this point so that I could paint it this fast. You guys have a great